This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Ever since Disney Plus burst onto the streaming scene in 2019, it has grown to not only compete, but also in many ways nowadays it beats Netflix in terms of quality original content. And 2023 looks to be no different, with tons of new Star Wars, Marvel and even animated series coming to the service. So let's look to the year ahead, up next. Hi there Waltineers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and in this video for today, I'm not just going to be listing off every single thing coming to Disney Plus in 2023, as quite frankly there's an awful lot and it might get a little bit repetitive and boring in that format. And so instead what I've done is I've collected the biggest and most exciting new original content offerings that are set to stream in 2023. And so let's begin with the show that started it all for Disney Plus, and that is of course The Mandalorian, as on March 1st, 2023, the third season will begin streaming. And this will pick up directly following the events of 2021's The Book of Boba Fett, where Mando was reunited once again with Grogu in the midst of the heated battle on Tatooine. But the catalyst for this season's story arc will see Mando and Grogu travelling to the living waters on the planet Mandalore, so that Din Djarin can attempt to redeem himself for the transgression of removing his helmet at the end of Season 2. However, in Season 3, it's set to dive even deeper into Mandalorian culture, with Bo-Katan returning to the series, but everything is not right on Mandalore, as the complicated fractious history of the planet and its people is sure to become a central point of contention for the series to deal with. And it even seems that this season may also be exploring ways in which the Mandalorian spirituality and mythology might just be intertwined with the early foundations of the Jedi as well. But in terms of the cast, characters from previous seasons will be appearing, including Giancarlo Esposito as Moff Gideon in what is said to be an enlarged threat throughout the series, continuing his hunt for Grogu for his uniquely powerful Force-sensitive properties. And there will even be a few new characters, which will have you shouting "Great Scott" at the screen, as Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future is set to join the series as well. And so as this has been the way, get ready for 8 new episodes of The Mandalorian when they begin to stream in March and April of 2023. And then continuing on from Mandalorian, later on in 2023, a certain dual lightsaber-wielding former Padawan is set to return to our screens, but not in The Mandalorian where she first debuted in the live-action Star Wars universe, but in her very own series, aptly named Ahsoka, as this will see Rosario Dawson reprise her role of the infamous Togruta known as Ahsoka Tano. However, this Ahsoka series will also see the live-action debut of 2 very important Rebels characters, with Natasha Liu Bedizo cast as the former Mandalorian warrior and revolutionary leader Sabine Wren, and Aman Esfanadi set to portray the exceptionally Force-sensitive Jedi Padawan Ezra Bridger. And in addition to this casting news, Hayden Christensen has also been reported to reprise his role for the series, but not as Darth Vader as he did for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, but this time as Anakin Skywalker, thus indicating that this series will be jumping around the Star Wars timeline quite a bit, filling in those narrative holes with flashbacks to critical events for those who have never watched any of the animated Star Wars series. And speaking of which, this Ahsoka series is said to be a live-action extension to the story that was explored within Star Wars Rebels, with Dave Filoni having written and produced the new series as well. And it's because of that, it's also expected that this series will likely be where we first see the eagerly anticipated introduction of Grand Admiral Thrawn into the live-action Star Wars universe. Now in terms of the streaming date, considering that filming began on May 9th, 2022, it's expected that we're looking at approximately the second half of 2023, which allows time for the team to complete all of the post-production needed, meaning that it will likely begin streaming in summer or early fall of 2023. But that's not all for the live-action Star Wars-y goodness coming to Disney Plus in 2023, as it's also been reported that Star Wars Skeleton Crew is also scheduled for a 2023 streaming debut. And this series has been described as a coming-of-age story in the style of the 1980s Amblin classics like The Goonies, but within the Star Wars universe. And although not much else is known about the plot details of this series beyond it being set within the same time period as the Mandalorian and the Ahsoka series, we do know that Jude Law has been cast in the leading role, and it is being produced by the Spider-Man Homecoming Far From Home and No Way Home director John Watts, and is being written by the Spider-Man Homecoming screenwriter Christopher Ford. However, considering that the filming began in September, and is said to wrap around December 2022, I would expect that if this series is still scheduled for a 2023 debut on Disney+, it will probably be very late on in 2023 in the winter period, allowing enough time for post-production whilst also technically having its debut in 2023 and then continuing on into January of 2024. And then before we wrap up this Star Wars section of the video, I just want to also mention one last series, and that is The Acolyte, as this 8-episode series, which has been filming since October 2022, is set within the timeline around 100 years before the events of The Phantom Menace, and details how the dark side powers infiltrated the Jedi in the final days of the High Republic. And although we don't have a release date for this series, I wanted to mention it just now, just in case Lucasfilm decide to switch out the release of the Skeleton Crew with this series in 2023 instead. But then, let's move on over to Marvel Studios, as despite Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania kicking off Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in February, over on Disney Plus, Phase 5 will continue in spring of 2023, when the much-anticipated Secret Invasion series begins streaming. And this will see Samuel L. Jackson reprise his now iconic role as Nick Fury, alongside Ben Mendelsohn as Talos, Kobe Smulders as Maria Hill, Martin Freeman as Everett K. Ross, and of course Don Cheadle as James Rhodey Rhodes. And joining this all-star cast is Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones and Olivia Colman from The Crown. And this 6-episode series is set to be an incredibly important installment in setting up the storytelling of the MCU for the next phase, as it will seek to uncover answers about the shape-shifting aliens, the Skrulls, and their true intentions for infiltrating Earth since the events of Captain Marvel in the 1990s. And although the series is said to deliver a grittier and more grounded drama exploring what went on during the blip, it's also going to be a suspense-driven thriller as well, posing the question who can and can't be trusted as their true selves within the MCU. Then next up in the summer of 2023, following on from its debut in 2021, The God of Mischief is back for 6 more episodes in Season 2 of Loki. And this will pick up directly where Season 1 ended, with Loki still stuck within the Time Variance Authority, but this time the TVA is vastly different, as it has been forever changed by the presence of Kang. And despite Owen Wilson's Mobius M. Mobius forgetting Loki by the end of Season 1, the two will be forced together again in what has been described as a battle for the soul of the TVA. And then in terms of the casting, we're going to see Gugu Mbatha-Raw return as Renslayer, Sophia Di Martino as Sylvie, and likely Jonathan Majors to cameo as Kang, along with 2 new additions to the cast with Ke-Huy Quan as a TVA archivist, and Rafael Casal set to have an undisclosed major role in the series as well. And in terms of the wider scheme of things, it seems that this season will be must-watch TV for Marvel fans, as this season is said to help connect the entire multiverse saga to the rest of the cinematic universe. Then also in summer of 2023, we'll see Echo debut on Disney+, and this is a series based around Maya Lopez, who was introduced in the Hawkeye series, and it follows her journey as she comes to terms with her past and reconnects with her Native American roots. And it's also said that this Echo series will lead directly into the new Daredevil Born Again series that's being produced for Disney+ and will be arriving in spring of 2024. But moving into fall of 2023, Another completely new series called Ironheart is set to begin streaming. And in this series we will see the introduction of a pretty important character for the MCU, called Riri Williams, played by Dominique Thorne, who first appeared in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And the reason why this character is important is because Williams is the MIT student and genius inventor who creates a suit of armor that rivals the one built by Tony Stark, and becomes known as Ironheart, thus being yet another critical step along the way in the eventual formation of the Young Avengers. Then before the end of 2023, we're set to see one more live-action Marvel series that has been eagerly anticipated by fans ever since her debut in WandaVision. And that is of course Agatha, Coven of Chaos, which begins streaming in winter of 2023. And obviously this will see the return of Catherine Hahn as Agatha Harkness, as despite Marvel being purposely tight-lipped about the storyline, it's expected that we're going to see how Agatha breaks out of Wanda Maximoff's spell that trapped her within the Agnes persona, and see Agatha's next steps in regaining her powers after losing the Darkhold, by building her Coven of Chaos. And although details do remain sparse, we have received casting news for Emma Cofield Ford, who played Dottie in WandaVision, is set to return, possibly hinting at her being an ally of Agatha, and Aubrey Plaza has also joined the cast for a new villainous role. But despite this show picking up all the pieces from WandaVision, this time this series will be truly about Agatha all along. Then sticking with Marvel, 2023 will also see the debut of Season 2 of the animated What If series, which in my opinion this series was a quiet standout in all of the Marvel Disney Plus content since its launch, with storylines that have paid off in the live-action MCU in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Therefore it's going to be fascinating to see what they dive into in the next season of What If. And continuing along that same vein, we have the X-Men 97 animated series scheduled for 2023 as well. And considering just how well integrated What If ended up being, then I highly recommend keeping your eyes peeled to X-Men 97, as it might be very important in understanding how Marvel will continue its evolution with the introduction of the X-Men characters within the cinematic universe. However, talking about animated series coming to Disney Plus in 2023, there's also going to be some from Walt Disney Animation Studios and Pixar as well. As first of all, there will be Disney's Tiana, that will follow Tiana as the newly crowned Princess of Maldonia on a completely new adventure. And then secondly, there is Disney's Moana, that will explore the world of Motunui as Moana leads her island into new frontiers. And both these series will continue to use the same animation style from their respective movies, which means that the Tiana series will be using 2D animation. And instead of these being short little anthology series that we've seen from Disney Animation that they've produced over the past few years for Disney Plus, with Olaf Presents, Baymax and Zootopia Plus, these new series of Tiana and Moana will be long-form musical comedies with episodic storytelling. And then in addition to this, Disney has also partnered with Pan-African animation studio Kugali to bring an original series called Iwaju, which is set in Lagos, Nigeria, and is a sci-fi and futuristic animated series that will begin streaming sometime in 2023. Then, in the fall of 2023, Pixar Animation Studios will be creating their first long-form, completely original, episodic animated series, titled Win or Lose, which revolves around a co-ed middle school softball team looking at the exact same week in time, but from every character's different perspective. And then lastly, in terms of Disney Plus original movie debuts, there really hasn't been that many confirmed to be coming to Disney Plus next year as of the time of this recording. But that is with the notable exception being Peter Pan and Wendy, as this David Lowery directed live-action movie will use the iconic character work developed for Disney's 1953 animated version of Peter Pan, along with drawing a lot of inspiration from J.M. Barrie's novel Peter and Wendy, to create a unique live-action live-action reimagining of this classic tale. And bringing these characters to life will be Alexander Maloney as Peter Pan, Eva Anderson as Wendy, Alan Tudyk and Molly Parker as Mr. and Mrs. Darling, Yara Shahidi as Tinkerbell, and Jude Law as Captain Hook, along with Jim Gaffigan as his right-hand man, Smee. And so this should be an interesting Disney Plus original movie, as this won't just be the exact same story as the 1953 animated version, but then retold in live action as the other live action remakes have done, but instead it will have a fully fleshed out, layered story that aims to pull more from J.M. Barrie's source material as well. So there you have it, that was my comprehensive rundown of the biggest and most exciting original content series that we know is currently scheduled to stream in 2023 on Disney+. And in my opinion, it looks to be yet another stellar year that will easily keep Disney extremely competitive in the ongoing streaming war. Now, at the beginning of this video, you heard me say that this video is sponsored by Squarespace. In actual fact, this is actually kind of a strange full circle moment for me and the channel, as you may not be aware of this, but actually Squarespace played a vital role in the creation of this channel. As you see, before there was DSNY Newscast on YouTube, I used to operate a Disney News app for free called DSNY Digest for over 2 years. And yet all of that was hosted on and powered by Squarespace's incredible blogging platform. And since then, Squarespace has continued to innovate with Squarespace extensions, social profile integration, and new ways to connect your audience and generate revenue through gated members-only content that enable the management of memberships, email communications, and leveraging audience insights all on one easy-to-use platform. So go to squarespace.com for a free trial today, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/DSNY Newscast to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. But now it's over to you, the Waltineers, in the comments section, as I would like to know, what are you most looking forward to see stream on Disney Plus in 2023, and the reason why. And if you've enjoyed this video for today, then be sure to give this video a massive thumbs up. Check out the rest of the videos on the channel as well, and be sure to subscribe down below and hit that notification bell so you get the latest videos from DSNY Newscast. And with all of that being said, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.